Welcome to the Special Education Essentials for Parents and Families podcast with your host, David Tollner. In each episode, we'll have guests who are professionals in the special education and disability services industry who support children with special needs. The law is complex, and this podcast does not cover all situations, legal responsibilities, or variations in different circumstances. This podcast is for entertainment and informational purposes only, and nothing contained in this podcast should be construed as legal advice. The views expressed in this podcast may not be those of the host or the firm. We are not responsible for any losses, damages, or liabilities that may arise from the use of this podcast. This podcast is not intended to replace legal advice. You can find this show on all the major platforms including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcast, Spotify, and on our website, TollnerLawOffices.com. Now, here's the host of Special Education Essentials for Parents and Families, David Tollner.
Yes, welcome everyone again to the fifth installment of Special Education Essentials. I am very proud to introduce you today to Dr. Marina Vaserman, who is the founder and executive director of Open Mind School in Mountain View, California, one of my favorites, and we'll get into why in a minute. Welcome, Marina. Let me start there.
Hello.
And thank you very much for coming on Special Education Essentials. It's great to have you. Let me start by telling our listeners why you're here, because I think that's important. As many of our listeners know, many school districts struggle to educate children with special needs. They're just not designed for it. And obviously the spectrum of special needs kids is so broad, many fall through the cracks, even in the best intended school districts. And if you're really fortunate, you have some specialty schools like Open Minds in your area, right? We're lucky in Northern California. We have quite a few. Other areas of the country have less, unfortunately. But the nice thing about what I call specialty schools is that they're designed for the kids they serve largely, which means they bring in expertise and or develop expertise, I'm sure both, to serve those kids. And with those specialty schools, when they are serving a child that fits their school program, we see a lot more progress, right? That's what we want. That's what we want out of this whole IEP process, which is the nature of this very podcast, is improving your IEPs for your students. So if you have a specialty school that fits your child well, consider sending him there or her there, because you're going to see greater progress, generally speaking. Again, one of my favorites is Open Minds because they serve a broad variety of children. They do have a significant open mind about the kids that they serve. They are the only ones that provide services many of my clients like that other specialty schools don't. I think of letterboard use is one example of that. And there are others, and not to mention it's a beautiful campus and a very well-run program. So with that, I want to turn it over to Marina to tell us a little bit about Open Minds, how she got into it, what in her mind created this school, and why she created it, and how it's going thus far. Go ahead, Marina. I think you may have froze there just a touch.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, David. I appreciate that intro and the kindness. It is quite a unique space to be in Silicon Valley and really see the breadth of different school services and just offerings that exist here. The school itself really started with a single student who had this incredible curiosity and love for learning and a desire to push himself academically, and struggled at the same time with social isolation in the school system, with feeling really underestimated there. And it felt as though in that moment, it was a humbling call to action to figure out what to do with that. I think as providers, both within the educational space and education and advocacy as a whole, figuring out our role within the ecosystem of schools is so vastly important. And for me, at that point, it was, what do we do with that information? How do we support a student and really make meaningful programming for an individual? Didn't stop there, because that doesn't solve a lot of the problems and what's happening bigger and broader, but it really was an interesting moment to lean into support services and think really, really extensively about creating meaningful programs in that way. We scaled beyond that. It was very much a desire and a need within the community to think about, how do you take this really, really important data around addressing social vulnerabilities, which for our students early on was a feeling of respect, dignity, equity within education, and bringing that forward with really exciting content and curriculum, thinking about interesting supportive services, and then spanning the gamut of the demographic that we serve. When we say that Open Mind School truly serves a wide, vast array of learners that you alluded to and mentioned, we really do see ourselves as inclusion. We have students who are neurodiverse and neurodivergent. We have students who would be categorically within the neurotypical range. When we say neurodiversity, not only are we talking about learning differences, but we're talking about those who are in gifted realms, profoundly gifted, twice exceptional. And so one of our most interesting pieces as educators is really figuring out how to take such an interesting mix of students and be able to have this really incredible program and opportunity for true equity and inclusion.
No, and I totally agree. And that's what separates you, in my mind, from many of the other specialty schools is inclusion, right? Having neurotypical kids around your neurodiverse kids, which we all recognize is very important, is not what you see a lot in specialty schools. We love what they do, but because they're specialty schools, they tend to take kids that fit their wheelhouse.
Yes.
And I'm always looking for a specialty school that has a wheelhouse for whatever client I'm trying to put in there, right? Is this the kid you do really well with? And the beautiful thing I've always thought about Open Minds is that it does well with a broader variety of special needs kids than many of the other specialty schools. So I know that if I've got someone who no one else will take, I've got a good case because the district has dropped the ball for years, and I'm looking for a place that will serve and drive progress with this student. If nobody else will take them, and it's not that you will take everybody, that's not it at all, but you've done such a great job with the inclusion program and broadening your expertise that you'll take kids that other programs won't, which I absolutely love, because there's nothing worse for me than having a great case and no place to send them.
Yeah. We think a lot about what does it look like to have best practices in line. And when you're able to do that and you really think about this universal design for access and learning for students in every classroom, in every single school around the entire world, you have a wide range of learners. And unless there is this willingness, open mind, and hard work and dedication to be able to really think holistically and creatively about how to tap into those different learner profiles, there's a lot of really sad missed opportunities in learning.
Yeah. Do you have, and I don't know that I've ever asked you this question because I've never needed to, but I'm going to ask it because I think it's important. Do you have a wheelhouse student? That's just my terminology. The kid that, 9 out of 10 times you hit a home run on, you drive progress, they fit in really well. Everybody recognizes this is the right place for him or her. What is that kid for Open Minds in your mind, if such a child exists?
Yeah, I think we have a wheelhouse for a family. Family fit is something we talk about very, very often. We have an extremely extensive application process. And the hope with that is that we're really aligning synergy in this partnership. We can do whatever as a school, but if we're trying to do that in silos and not tapping into outside providers, the family as a whole, other resources, the progress we make is going to be static at some point anyway. And so what we're looking for when we go through the application process in the wheelhouse of the family, are they really dedicated and invested to the work? Will they show up and do the work? We are not a drop off and pick up type of place. We're going to work really hard. And the expectation is there's this give and take that exists in journeying through education. We very much are a part of innovation and want to drive that with our students, which means we're constantly creating and making spaces, programs, new classes, new clubs. It's so focused and driven by the students that we need partners in alignment to really push that forward and make that progress continue to skyrocket and move. So those are the families who do well, those who are really invested in that journey. And it's complicated because they have to love inclusion. We have such a huge range of students that if there is discomfort with that population, that's going to be a roadblock, and that will hinder progress and not be a good fit for our school. Yeah. We're looking for the inclusivity. We're looking for the forward thinking. We're looking for the partnership. We're looking for the innovation. We want passionate families as much as we want passionate students. The learner profile, we can span the gamut, and we do. So we're looking for family fit.
So autism, SLDs, right, across the board, high anxiety, emotional issues, everything. Dyslexia, do you cover that as well?
We do. Okay, we do.
Our listener to say, okay, my kid has X. Should I be looking at open minds? And I think you probably cover an awful lot.
We do. And, it's so interesting because there is sort of this encapsulating piece of what a particular learner profile might be and falling into. And sometimes it's comorbid and it spans the gamut in terms of difficulty or how it shows up, or even self-confidence and anxiety or self-esteem, and how that manifests within a classroom, especially a really dynamic classroom space, but really feeling comfortable with a diagnosis. And really, when we're looking at that, we're looking at treating symptoms. And we don't frame it in quite the same way. We don't have entry exams that you have to take to come to school here. We don't do battery assessments. We're looking for, at the core of it, what is the difficulty that's preventing you from being able to truly access this educational opportunity? Is it a communication area of difficulty? Is it social anxiety, low self-esteem? What is actually at the core preventing this strive and this desire and this openness to make mistakes, to take, we call it being academic vulnerable risks, right? Raising your hand and getting an answer wrong. It's huge what it can cover, but essentially, yes. And we have students who have language differences, who are coming here from other countries. We have students who are in a vulnerable population. They're coming from foster care and dependency youth who we're serving. We're really, really, again, not niched in a particular diagnosis, but rather in high quality community service and education. I consider Open Mind School very much a social impact school, because we're rooted in the drive for making impact.
Right. No, I love it. And one of the things that stands out for me is when I struggle with some of my students to find an appropriate placement is the behavioral side, right? That a lot of specialty schools, they're wonderful when they can serve the child that doesn't have behaviors, that comes to school every day and is attentive as much as possible. But behaviors get in the way. We all know that they can. And the wonderful thing about Open Minds, in addition to everything else, is that they have a wonderful behavior team. So that even behaviors that may be the reason why the school district program isn't working out, Marina's team is very good at getting those under control so learning happens. And we've been fortunate enough at TLO to put many, many students there, and invariably the feedback from the parents is they're very pleased. So congratulations and thank you again, because having you there makes my job so much easier. So tell us about the community involvement piece, because it sounds great and I hear it, but I think Open Minds really practices it. So tell us about how you get your kids in the community and drive progress social progress in particular, but really all kinds, by partnering with other programs, other agencies, other people in the community.
Yeah, I'll just say to the last piece, one of the contributing factors in it being successful, regardless of a student's profile, is the flexibility around programming, whether they're coming from you, and so many of our families are so lucky to be served by really, really talented advocates and legal folks who are helping to support navigating that. Sometimes students are ready and sometimes they're not for the classroom, and the classroom doesn't have to be in these four walls. We have absolutely done hybrid programs, part-time programs, drop-in, a la carte. We started an experiential program where all of the classes existed on hiking trails around the Bay Area because we felt as though for a particular learner, that creativity and model and connection with nature would make more of a profound impact than the difficulty and negative connotation of a school-based environment. So I think having that openness in what schooling can look like and continuous evaluation of, is it working, is it not, and how do we pivot and shift based on where students are, is so huge and important. And then for being a community school, which I think really continues that idea, we do a few different things. One is we open our doors for others who are not part of our school system full time, meaning we have students from other schools who are dropping in, who are coming here after school, during the day, they're taking labs. We're an AP testing site. We do a whole lot of services and programming and are open to the community. And the second part is allowing specialists who are in that community, in their area of specialization, to come in and be a part of our school. That could be NASA scientists who are coming in to teach a 3-part space series for us. It could be different types of specialists, published authors, and those who are running writers workshop coming in, everyone who does pottery and music and arts, really, really becoming a part of our community from the outside, other organizations. And then for us, we're out every single day. I was looking at the calendar right before I jumped on this call. I think I counted about 74 field trips we have this semester alone. Wow. So we're out and we're doing the work, and the work is completely inspired by our students. We partner with local nonprofits. We're out and working with them, really teaming up, making sure that we're living and breathing the community and continuing our own ideas of servant leadership that way, and making sure that that's instilled in our students as a core value of the school. And then just having fun and using really the landscape of the Bay Area to get to museums and cafes and really, really experiencing that. We have students offsite right now playing basketball. They're over at NDNU on the college campus. We really, really get creative outside of our school space in being a part of the community, being a resource for the community, and really, again, finding ourselves not ever being in silos, but that this is something so much bigger than our school and so much bigger than the students and families here, but is about systems change and openness to really that accessibility and inclusivity that has to exist and transcend beyond school walls.
Great. Yeah, no, I totally agree. We forget to make school fun.
That's right.
And for so many of my clients in particular, that's the most important thing you could do, is that they can't wait to get back to OMS, or they can't wait to get back to school. If you lose that, then you've lost the ability to really drive progress in all the ways that we want to think about progress being driven in our students. The social side, the emotional side, not just the academic side. And we very often lose track of that. What grades does OMS serve?
Yeah, we serve pre-K through post-secondary. So we're here across the lifespan. We are just starting to come across our students graduating. And so we've been encouraged to consider what it might look like beyond the high school years to really support that continued education practice. I've been in higher ed for a very long time. I'm a part-time and adjunct lecturer at different state universities locally. And so when I think about really education across the lifespan and thinking thoughtfully about what it means to be a lifelong learner, to instill that hope and desire of learning and how that can drive mission and advocacy and just work forward, I also think about how we can continue that here. And so I'm not sure what that looks like beyond 22, but we very much span that presently here.
Well, good to hear you're thinking about that, only because, as you probably know, there's a dearth of programming for adults, right? The system is set up for 3 to 22, and then everybody falls off a cliff from a programming perspective. I'm sure there are some good adult day programs out there. It's not to disparage the good ones, but I've seen them. You having had your job at one point in a distant life, in a similar but somewhat different program specifically for kids on the spectrum. I learned by seeing a bunch of adult day programs, there aren't very many good ones out there, and almost none that are very effective for driving anything that we would call progress, even with life community skills. Or so the fact that somebody like you is thinking about taking that on, hallelujah, and thank you, because it is a program that people shy away from in this business because all the money dries up. And so finding a way to keep that progress moving forward after 22 is hugely important to all of the kids we serve, and particularly the ones you do. So good to hear. Anything else you guys are planning to start? You should be careful telling me these things, because now I'm going, all right. Now I've got someplace else to be thinking about, where to send my students or my clients.
Yeah, it's always brewing here. Like I said, it's so much driven by the families and students here. So as things are coming up for them, it's constantly changing and evolving here. For us, not too long ago, we opened our Ninja Warrior course. It's a 14,000 square foot Ninja Warrior space that is an incredible inclusive access, move your body at the center of our entire campus. And the idea behind that is really this concept of brain-body connection, and how do we apply really the research we know and the understanding of moving your body, getting your needs met that way, and then going into the classroom for learning, or better yet, in our school, what we do is bring a lot of that equipment into the classroom. And so we have spaces that have drop-down swings and pedal bike desks, and we're, again, always looking at the environment and thinking about how do we make this a very exciting place for learning, and how do we meet students' needs in a way that feels as though it's not stigmatizing to move while you're learning. In fact, if that is how your brain is taking in and processing information, we need to, as educators, provide those opportunities in a way that's really inclusive and readily available for all of our students. So we're hoping to take that and those ideas a little bit more into other schools. I've always dipped my toes in everything from public to private to non-public to charter schools, and thinking about educational policy, practical work, and being a part of thinking about creating optimal environments for learning. So I think that's a very big space that I've always been in, and wanting to create greater impact. That doesn't happen having a standalone school, no matter how hard we try. It really does happen at a greater, broader level, and that has to be the combination and partnership between public and private. And so my hope is to continue consultation-based practices for other schools, and being able to support this initiative that we can all learn and grow together. And that doesn't have to be scary or frightening, but it can be this really beautiful way of being a part of something bigger than ourselves. And so I think that's a big piece, continuing to grow. We're always changing, but my focus right now has been on figuring out what to do, I think, after high school, now that we're seeing some graduates. So we'll see how that evolves.
Good. Well, I can't wait to see what you come up with, because I'm sure it's going to be something. So the listeners know, in Dr. Vaserman's way too humble to talk. She has a beautiful space. The Open Minds School space is very well thought out and put together. It's a big warehouse that she's created into a number of classrooms all the way around in the central, what would you call that? Almost like a huge inner courtyard, right? It's massive. Is playgrounds and now a Ninja Warrior set up. Is that what you said?
That is.
Yeah. And very attractive, right? Just one more piece of why kids look forward to going to Open Minds. They get they even if it's pouring outside, they can be active. right? Because we often forget that activity and moving the body is an important part of education as well. And many of our kids, as you know, need it and need it a lot. Without that movement, they really they struggle to regulate themselves, so they can be available for learning. And Open Minds provides a very unique environment for that, unquestionably. So tell me about just how schools become hubs for lifelong learning, right? Because that's what you're talking about. You're talking about not just this TK to 22, or right. You're talking about now even extending out that. And do you look for some of your kids? I mean, I've sent you. I have an idea of the kind of kids you serve very well, of course, and some of them are not college bound. Some are. Some will go to college after Open Minds, and some will not. Their struggles and their challenges are too significant. So that brings to mind the adult you're talking about that is graduating, and what do we do there? How do you set the kids up for being successful adults, even without an adult day program, in Open Minds, right? You've got a 10-year-old or even a 17-year-old. You always have to look forward, right? You always have to look post-high school, even no matter how old they are, and then work to develop the skills necessary for them to be successful adults. How does Open Minds approach that?
Yeah, I think when I think about lifelong learning, college is not for everyone, whether you're very scholastic or not. It's really about opening doors. You should have the option and the choice. So how do we as educators create these hubs or opportunities where there's continuous learning that occurs? For us, most of our classes are taught by content specialists. They're often doctorate level teachers who are specialists within their domain and specialty. And then we have learning guides in the classroom who support differentiation and scaffolding as appropriate for learners, really thinking about how do you teach and teach really interesting content that sparks this joy of learning. I'm a huge proponent that we are born into this world with this openness to wanting to seek information and growing by learning from our environment and our experiences. And so continuing that through the lifespan is so huge. I think in terms of the ways that we do that and how we really encourage others to do similar type of work, aside from just really thinking about the culture of lifelong learning, flexible curriculum, we have tons of mentorship programs. We're honing in and really are experts in creating community partnerships, what it looks like to have collaboration with other nonprofit and government partnerships, thinking about local businesses and how to support students when they're done and they're seeking information or they want to be a part of a different community here, how to go about doing things like that. We think about creating community-based services and resources, that's after-school programs, weekend programs, safe spaces to just be able to learn and engage. Families should feel as though they can drop off a child and they can have a good time learning and socializing and being a part of their community without this fear or stigma that they might not be accepted or might not feel as though they belong. And so creating spaces for that. It's hard. So many families share, there are only so many programs we can be a part of, or just so many places we can drop off or camps to sign up. That shouldn't be a hurdle. It just shouldn't. This day and age, with the resources we have, with the folks who are willing and able and wanting to help, everyone should be able to take part of everything that they wish to. And so really getting creative with how to resource those. We promote a lot of social justice and impact work. And so we're here as a resource. We're here as a resource to other schools who want to figure out how to be more inclusive or how to differentiate their curriculum more, or how to just address and serve a student who might present as a little bit more complex as a learner than some of their others. And all those things are huge. The other really big piece that we're focused on, that we're seeing a trend in most schools, is around mental health, well-being. We run wellness workshops here. And so making sure that that's a piece of it for some of our learners. It's a little bit difficult to tap into mental health related services, especially when there are communication barriers. Again, these are basic human rights. These services need to exist. They need to exist for all people. And so how do we as providers and partners really create that synergy and that way of being able to adapt to different change for sustainability. So in short, I think, hubs for lifelong learning and social impact are created when learning is integrated in the community, when it's accessible, and when both as providers, educators, and also those who are being served as students and families don't take no for an answer, but are seeking support and being able to get the right resources in place.
Yeah, well, we're lucky in Northern California to have open minds, of course, but also to have so many others. And our listeners, I encourage you, if your child is struggling in public school and you just aren't seeing much in the way of progress, look in your community. You may not have an Open Minds or something like Open Minds out there. If you're a listener that's in Northern California, I should invite you, if you are in the same boat of a child that's not making good progress in public school, to look at Open Minds and look around at all the specialty schools. Because what I tell every single client that comes in the door is knowledge is power. And to the extent you know what's available to you, you're in a better place to make the right decision. And the only way to do that, no matter where you live in America, no matter where you're listening to this, is to see what's in your community. You might be surprised. You might not have an Open Minds there or the equivalent, but you might very well have small little schools that just started by somebody just like Dr. Vaserman, right, who just said, there's a need here. Darn it, I want to fill it and with the right background, and fills it well, that you've never heard of because you haven't looked. So if you're listening to the podcast and you're in a community and you don't know what's out there, find out because, and then find an advocate potentially in your community that is going to be able to hopefully drive the district to reimburse you or fund that placement. Because here's what the law says. And at its core, this is about improving your IEP, right? And understanding the programs in your area is a part of that. But the law says if the district can't drive progress, you have the right to unilaterally place, basically telling the district, you're not doing your job, I'm going to do it for you. And I'm going to do it at public expense because you're not, right? My child hasn't made progress in a very long time. If you're fortunate enough to have a school like Open Minds or something that fits your child in your community, the law allows for you very often. It requires you to file for due process. The district, unless they're quite open about the fact they can't serve your child, is unlikely to want to expend those funds without a fight. But still, that fight is winnable. We win it every day, and we get districts, which is the great crux of what we do in our firm, is get districts to pay for private schools or specialty schools that work. So find the one in your area that fits your child. If you think it's a good fit and your child isn't making progress at public school, there's an opportunity there for you you may not have thought about before. So take advantage of it. All right, Marina, thank you again so much for coming on. I'm a big fan, always have been. Love working with you when I have a student there and just love the breadth of your programming because it makes my job so much easier when I can put it, and it makes us look so good, right, as a firm to say, you know what, have you seen this place called Open Mind, right? And then they go and they look at it and they're blown away and they go, all right, that's what we want. And then their kid goes there and does great.
Yeah.
Right. And is happy to go to school for the first time versus screaming about going all day and night previously. That is a value added to that entire family. Speaking of the family piece, that is of unspeakable value. And so thank you for being there. Thank you for putting together such a wonderful program. I'm a big fan, and hopefully others that hear this will check you out as well, because I think that's what some of my clients and your students and some families really need is options. The more options we have, the better.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much thanks for the work you do. I was just going to share, our families are so hopeful when they do have the great support, and David, especially with your firm, it's just been so impactful for so many of our families to feel as though they can navigate something that is really complicated in the system, and being able to fight that. So thanks so very much for all that you do in the field as well.
Well, thank you very much. It's, as we both know, it's a pleasure. It really is. It's from a legal perspective. If you're an attorney out there who, like me, where I used to be, hated practicing law, special ed is an area that is very different from anything else you can do. And it's a pleasure. It's, I've never thought I would say that about being an attorney, but I've been doing this now for almost 20 years. And I wish I had been doing it for all 40 that I've had my license, or almost. All right. So with that, thank you everyone out there for joining us on Special Education Essentials. I believe our interviewee next time will be Dr. Brendan Pratt, a IEE assessor, who will talk about assessments and private assessments and what you can do to use those assessments to improve your child's IEP and the progress that they make in school. So with that, thank you again, and we'll see you next time. Thank you again, Dr. Vaserman. Goodbye.
Thank you.
You've been tuning in to the Special Education Essentials for Parents and Families podcast with your host, David Tollner. This podcast is not intended as legal advice and does not create an attorney-client relationship. Please talk to your legal counsel about your own situation. You can find this show on all the major platforms, including YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our website, tollnerlawoffices.com. Thank you for your positive reviews, comments, questions, and for sharing this show with others.